Okay, good morning. So today we're going to do Reish Lamed Daled, very interesting simon, and that finishes off all the halachos of Mincha, and we'll, Mr. Hashem, encounter some fascinating halachos about Mincha. So, the Reish Lamed Daled is headed, Hareitz Elispala Mincha Gedola u Mincha Katana. What does that mean? So before we even read the Mechaber, let's just do the first sif of Mishnah Berurah. Mincha Gedola. So, what is Mincha Gedola? What is Mincha Katana? Mincha Gedola is Misheshar Sumechsa. So we've said that already. That Mincha Gedola is from half an hour after Chatzos. So on the 6th to 6th day, and Chatzos is 12 o'clock. So it's going to be at 12:30. Or Mincha Katana he Mitesha Shar Sumechsa Lamala will be later, which in the 6th to 6th day, 9.5 hours is 3:30 and onwards. And a person wants to daven both. And why does a person want to daven mincha twice? So achas lechiv, achas lenadava. He wants to daven one because it's mechuyev to daven mincha, and then he wants to daven a second one, which is a tefillas rishus. Or kamei dekaimelon besimen kuv zayin ziyochel adam nispala k'moshe yirtze b'teras nadava. If a person wants to do what's called a teras nadava, then he's entitled to do so. B'vachi chadish dava b'tefilosei shehu nadava ayin sham. So long as he adds something to the tefillah. Now, if you just look at notes 1 and 2. Which are at the back of the Sefer, page 60. He says, page 16, it's but number 1 and 2, 3/4 of the way down the page. Why can't you daven two minchas? What is the problem with davening a second mincha? So he says something fascinating. You can't daven not l'shem nedava, the second one, but the same as l'shem chayva. Kosev le'el in Simon Kuf Zayin, shekiven shetfilas keneged tamidim tiknum, since they correspond to the Talmud, then nechshav k'makriv shnei tamidim l'shem chayva, she'also mishum bal taisif. So it's corresponding to the common Talmud shel ben ha'abayim, and there's a problem of Bal Taisif. And he says, even if you spal Roshana b'yechidus, v'esashniya b'tzibur. So in other words, even if you daven for whatever reason the mincha b'yechidus, and then you get back into town in time, you can't daven mincha again b'tzibur because you already daven mincha. And now, with regard to tefillas nadava, generally, if you look at number 2, he says, "Olam bizmanenu kosev le'el b'shem ha'prim godim she'ein kedai lispal nadava v'chem mevu b'halach el." Well, one shouldn't really do tefillah nadava nowadays. There are ways of doing a voluntary tefillah. You know, I was at the Kaisel not long ago, and I was cheshboning, do I daven Mariv where they needed me for a minyan somewhere. So I wanted to daven later, but at the Kaisel. So I was thinking maybe I can daven now and I can do a tefillas nadava later, but the truth is one should avoid doing tefillas nadava. It's not ideal to do it. You've got to be. We'll see in a minute. You've got to be mechadish dava, and you've got to have kavanah from beginning to end. So they didn't in the end. A censor came, so I was okay. Okay. So now let's go back to the mechaber. So like I said, a person wants to daven twice. Now, if he wants to daven a tefillas chayva and a tefillas nedava, so ein roila lispal rishus el hagdoila. He should daven the tefillah rishus, the gedola one. Ve'im yispal al hagdoila chayva. If he davens, in other words, he should do the voluntary one first at mincha gedola time, and then the later one should be the chayva one, because the later time is the better time. The Mishnah is going to say. Ve'im yispal al hagdoila chayva, and if he davens the first one as a chayv, lo yispal haktana ki rishus, then the second one should be a rishus and not a chayva. Aval ein roi yispal tefillas rishus elim kein makir ba'azma shehu zohe v'zoriz v'omid b'daitoi. A person has got can only daven really tefillas nadava if he's certain lechavin b'tefillas mereish v'ad soif. He's very careful in halacha, very particular, and he's going to have kavanah from the beginning to the end of Shemon Esra. B'lo hesach hadas aval lemeinu mechavin bo. Why do I need so many karbonas? Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Cotton Base, Ein Royu. The after la'olam mispal la'chayv mikaydem, even though normally a person davens the chayv first, v'achakach rishus, and then later he davens rishus, hacha kaydem teisha mechza le'egia, before the mincha ketana, i.e. before 9.5 hours into the day, loy Higia oid ikazman mincha. It's not the main time for mincha. The main time for mincha is later in the afternoon. Why? The ikka time for mincha is 9.5 hours into the day. Why? Canal b'siman reish lam gimel, because that was the regular time for mincha to bring the carbon tomid shalbeinu rabbaim, and therefore that is the sort of preferred time, and therefore that's what the mechaber means. Ein roi lispal tfilas rishus. Ein roi lispal rishus el hagadola, and make your chayv one, the mincha katana one. It says the Mishnah Berurah Sivkot and Gimel, ve'im yispalel. What is that going on? But if you chose to do the first one as your chayv, then the second one should be rishus. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sivkot and Gimel, because at the end of the day you daven mincha from 12 and a half, half an hour after chatzos onwards, so it worked. Kanal b'sim reish gimel v'stoma shelei kivim behejish l'shem nedava. If you didn't really think about it, then automatically the default is that was your chayva. And if you want to daven a second Shemon then you should do it l'shem nedava. And then the mechaber carried on and said that you should only really do a tfilas nedava, tfilas rishus, if you're on a very high level, zahiv, zariz, and you're going to have kavanah from the beginning to the end, and there's no hesach hadas, etc. Now, interestingly, he says Elim Kein Makir in the Mishnah Berurah Sivkot and Dalet. He says Reish Shimon Kuf Zayin Mashma to Boinen Gamkein Shechadish Baldavar, that in addition to all of the above, you should also be mechadish baldavar, have a new machshava during your tfilas nedava. It could be that if a person is so careful, is so confident about himself that he's going to have kavanah from the beginning to end, he doesn't need to add anything, no chidush. Okay, end of that bit. Now says the Ramah. Haga. Yeah, you see that the second last line of the page. Ein loima ashrei. You should only say Ashrei when there is a minyan. So let's do the Mishnah Berurah. Overreish Simon Kuf Zayin Mashma the Boina. Sorry, Ein Omer Ashrei Sivkot and Hey Im Amru Belay Minyan VaAchakach Ba Minyan Yomru Mizma Echad. In other words, you got to be sure to say you want to say Kaddish. That's the point. And you can only really say a Kaddish after you said Ashrei. So if there's no minyan, then you've got a problem. So Im Amru Below Minyan, if you did say Ashrei without a minyan, and then all of a sudden the 10th man comes in, Yomru Mizma Echad, just say one kapitel of Tehillim, V'achakach Yomru Kaddish, and that will allow you to say Kaddish. V'uadin, K'shelom dim Beis HaMedrash, says the Mishnah Berurah, Below Minyan, V'achakach Korim Beis HaMedrash, and then afterwards people come along, Anoshim Lahashnim HaMinyan, Lo Yofa Osim. It's not a good thing, because the whole reason you can say Kaddish is going on the learning that just took place. That was the Kiddush Hashem, that there was learning going on. And therefore you need 10 people in the Beis HaMedrash during the learning. But you can get, say we do Rabbi Chanani ben Akasha, right? That's what we do. That is considered a public learning, and that allows you to say Kaddish. So let's take a look at 5 and 7. If you look at the second paragraph of paragraph 5, he says something very interesting. V'ha'im tzarich shekol ha'asor yomru es hapsukim. So we said about saying Kaddish after Ashrei. Do all 10 people have to say Ashrei? Or is it enough that the Chazan does it? So Kosov Le'el, in Sivkot and Tes, Shemaspik Sheshnaim and Shleisha Yomer. It's enough that only 2 or 3 people say it. Or Be'er Halocha Le'el, Kosov Shemaspik She'echod Yomer, even if one person says it. Now, and then if you look at the last line of that paragraph, V'eli Rabbatz Atzmei Kosov She'yema HaChazan Shleisha Psukim, El Shal Kol Ponim Sorech Shekol Asor Yishmu. As long as one person says it, the main thing is that the other 10 or the other 9 listen carefully. That's the important thing. Now, why is it that we're so keen to get a Kaddish before Shmoneh Esrei at Mincha? So the answer is, if you look at 6, Vatam shehigbid sheyemru Kaddish v'lo yaschilu Shmoneh Esrei b'lo Kaddish mishum shle'el in Siman Nun Hey it says she'ein lifchos mishiva kadeshim b'yoyim. that you shouldn't go less than 7 Kadeshim every day. Ve'echod mehem hu hakadesh shekoidem mincha. And one of the 7 kadeshes that you say is the one before mincha. Okay. So therefore we are very careful to try and get that Kaddish in. How do we get the Kaddish in? By making sure we say Ashrei, or at least a Kapitel Tehillim or something.
Why can't you just say Kaddish by itself? Why does that need to be said before?
There seems to be that you can only say Kaddish on the back of something. Because the Kaddish is for the learning, or is for the... So that is the learning. So you can't do it without it. Saying a Kaddish cold doesn't seem to be allowed, but it's the Mekadesh Shem Shemayim was the learning or whatever that was said. Now, if you look at number 7, very interestingly, v'achrei limud mishnayis oisha Torah shebal peh kosav le'el sheyesh lo mekadesh drabonon v'lo kadesh olim. So a person, let's say there was a limud, and you can just go straight in and say kadesh drabonon. V'hoisif ha-mishnah berurah sham shedavkim ama achrei ha-limud divrei agadata. There should be not just pure regular learning, but it should really be, the Kaddish should only be said after some Divrei Agada, which is Agadata. V'lochein na'agu lo ma'achri Pirkei Avos or achri Pirkei Bamalikin as Hamayim Esher B'Chanani Ben Akasha, because that is Agadata. Yeah, Rotz HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakei Yisrael, that's considered Agadata. V'omen b'halacha mashma she'omrim Kaddish Rabbanon gam al Torah shebal peh. The mashmos, the be'alacha is that you don't need to say Rabbi Chanan ben Akasha, because you just said it dvar halacha or dvar regular dvar Torah. V'af shelei omru kadesh koidim hakadesh divrei agoda. Okay, so that's that. Now let's go back to the Ramah. This is on the last word on page Kuf Mem Ches. Yesh shekosvu shenagin leima pashas atomid koidim ashrei. There are those who write that you should say karbonos, the parsha of the Tomid, before Ashrei Shel Tfilas Mincha, Neged Tomid Shabin Abayim, Uminag Yofahu, and that's a very nice minhag. You see it's in Nusach, in Chassidus Shtibelach, and you see that the people start with the carbon Tomid. In Munks they do it. If I'm not mistaken, in Munks they actually lane it from the bimah, not lane it from a sefer, they lane it from a siddur, but someone goes onto the bimah and says the carbon Tomid. I think.
Every day.
I think so. You've seen that? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Okay, but
yes,
Yossi, you've seen that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I saw it last week. Yeah.
There you go.
I saw it.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so Parshas HaTomid. So says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Cotton Vov, Parshas HaTomid, the Toiv Gam Kein Lo Mepitz Makteres. It's all good to do the Parshas Tomid and Pitz Makteres and all these things, but that's only if you're not going to miss Mincha. You should even skip Ashrei. He says the Nebuch people slip up on this and they can daven Mincha a bit too late. So take a look now at the 3 very interesting points. Paragraph 9. Paragraph 9. Yeah, so it's very good, he says, to say the Parshas Tomid, and the Ramah says it's a minhag yofer. So it says, footnote 9, when we say the Parshas Tomid in the morning, that we should do it standing. However, Kosav Badas Torah, in quoting the Yavitz, Shebeminchas, Yochel we can say the Parshas Tomid at Mincha time sitting down, the time al pi Kabbalah, and the reason is Kabbalistic. Why is it that it's much more common to say the Parshas Tomid at Shachris and not at Mincha? Kosav HaMakar Chaim, Kivin Shebenovi Yecheskel Muchach Shelaosid Lova Yizbatla Tomid Shabin Abayim. Interesting. In the future, when Mashiach comes, the Tomid Shabin Abayim will go, the afternoon one, and the Orach HaShulchan gives a different reason. They would say Mincha before the offering the carbon Tomid, and therefore, for those 2 reasons, it's less prevalent to say the Parshas Tomid before Mincha than it is at Shachris. However, the Ramah does say it's a minhag yofer. Okay, now if you look at number 11, also an interesting thing. What if you come to shul and you're a bit late and they're already starting Shemona Esra? What do you do about Ashrei? So he says in number 11, V'chein im bol lebeis hakneses b'shah she'atzibur hischilus shmona esrei, kosov le'el she'yedaleg al ashrei v'yaschel miyad shmona esrei matzibur. That is tefillah b'tzibur. So skip ashrei and then go straight in. V'matzibur omid b'soif ashrei. What if you're getting there and they're halfway through or they're at the end of ashrei? Kosov ha'makar Chaim she'imef she'yoma peseches yodecha. You should try and say peseches yodecha. That's the ikka posuk of ashrei. Okay, and then in number 12, when he says about people, the Mishnah Berurah says sort of very, almost sort of poignantly, people daven mincha a bit too late, and they can say Pitmak Teres, and they can say the carbon tomids, and then by the time they get around to mincha, it's already after shkia, whenever the soif zman is, and that's what 12 is about. The soif zman tfilas mincha kosov le'el, to remind ourselves shelechatchila tzarich legamer kol hatfilas. Ligmar is called tefillas at shkia. You should finish davening b'shmona esrei by shkia, or b'di'eved ad reva shah kodim tzeis hakechavim, and at least 15 minutes before tzeis hakechavim. And he says v'gamis chazor sashatz mashma le'el shetzorich legoimra kodim seis man tefillah. You should finish even chazor sashatz before the end of tefillah. Okay, that is the end of Sif Aleph. 1 second, we haven't finished off the Mishnah Berurah. Sif Kotan Zayin. The Mishnah Berurah Sif Kotan Zayin. Kaidem Ashrei. So that is, you say the Parshas Tomid before Ashrei. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Taz u'Mogen Avram Kosvu Loimar Acha Ashrei. That they say the carbon Tomid after Ashrei. Avol Ein HaMinhag Kein. That is not our Minhag. Kosav Atur. That this is the Seder of Tfilas Mincha. Seder Tfilas HaMincha. Oime Ashrei. V'Kadish u'Mispalin Shmona Esrei. V'shliach tzibur choyze hatfila k'mei b'shachris, chazor sashatz, v'noiflin al peneihem, and then they you say tachanun, v'oimrim v'anachnu lo neida, v'oimrim kadish shalem, v'kosu ha'poiskim, here we go, de mispalo mincha somach chashecha, v'nimshchu b'amiris avinu malkeinu, eishari tachanun, imach hatfila chashecha, ein lo mekadish tiskabel. Very interesting. That if you're going to go straight into avinu malkeinu, or other tachanunim, then you don't say Kaddish Tiskabel. Why? Because if that's delayed you to go into the next day, then you can't say a Kaddish on a tefillah which is on a different day. If the tefillah itself sort of went into the night, for example, tefillas ne'ilah, then only Kaddish Tiskabel, we do say Kaddish Tiskabel. Okay, again, a few interesting points on here. If you go to number 15. Now, v'nagin loima b'mincha kodim shmona esrei apostle kishem Hashem ekra. Right? Before we say our private shmona esrei, we say kishem Hashem ekra. Or k'mo shehevi hatur v'mkva oma. Very interesting. If a person already said Hashem sfosai tiftach, and he said, "Oops, it's mincha. I forgot to say kishem Hashem ekra." Kosav le'el shelo yomer acha mikein shum posuk. Once you started saying Hashem sfosai tiftach, you don't finish it off and then say Kishem Hashem Ekra. Why? Shekiven shekavu rabbanon betfila. Since Chazal made Hashem sfosai tiftach ufi yagit ilasecha as part of the nusach of tefillah, yesh lo din tefillah, and therefore it's like an interruption. V'hoisev agon of Chaim Kanievsky she'afilu im omer rak es atevus Hashem sfosai lo yafsik. V'chazon ish. And a quote with Chaim Kanievsky said that the name of the Chazon Ish, Lo noag lo mes apasuk, he was not noeg, is carried on the next page, Kishem Hashem Ekra, Uvatam Adova, Biacha Hagon Chaim, Shebeshulchan Aruch Mishbur, Lo Huva, Shenaga Lo Oimra. But the Maisa, the minhag is to say Kishem Hashem Ekra, even though the Chazon Ish's minhag was not to. Look at note 16, very interesting. V'imtar Hashatz, V'hischil Kaddish. Listen to this, amazing. That if a person, if the shatz, the shliach tzibur, after mincha, he said chazor sashatz, and for some reason he thought there was no tachanun that day, he started saying kaddish, hischal kaddish, hayra chazon ish, shelo yemrach kach tachanun. Once he started, even betots, which is very interesting, which is, you do see that from time to time. For Kosov Agon Chaim Kanievsky, Sheyitochin Shedin Zeh Hu Afilu Imam Hashatz Rak Tevis Achas Mekadosh. Yiskadal, once he started, then that's it, no more Tachanun. Now, also with regard to saying Aleinu after Mincha, look at note 17. Le'inyan Amiras Aleinu L'Shabeach Kosov Le'el Shenogum Dinoseinu Le'oimra Acha Kol HaGimut Tfilas. Our minhag is to say Aleinu after Shachris, Mincha and Mariv. V'mispalin Arvis Somach LeMincha. If, however, you daven Mincha and Mariv together, Oimrim Rak Acharei Arvis. Va'ile gam lemincha. There you go, Yossi. That's your Nusach Amsterdam, right? I was there a few months ago, and I saw it in person. They don't say Aleinu after Mincha when they daven Mincha Marav together. Okay. V'ulam. However, if there is a minyan and there's a yard site or whatever, Yossi, you go to Amsterdam, you've lost the Kaddish, right? So long as there's no chashash machlekes, interesting. Okay, very interesting. Now, just also very interesting. Look at number 18. This is the famous discussion. Do you say Tachanun after Shkia or not? This is a very heated. I don't know, when it comes to Tachanun, people have got very strong views. Yeah? I remember one time there was a machlekes, and the Rav looked up and just said, V'anachta lo neida. I don't know what to do. Even in the Filas Apayim. Kosev HaShulchan Aruch Le'el, she'ein leif na'pneim b'layla. Now you shouldn't say Tachanun at night time, the Mishnah Berurah says. The Mishnah Berurah Kosev she'bebein ha'shmoshes nagim lip ha'pneim. However, the Mishnah Berurah says that in bein ha'shmoshes the minig is to do Tachanun. And that's, by the way, a very famous one. I think it was what's it called, Shamash Fadron was once in the Chevron Yeshiva. He was a very he was a very colourful personality. And one time as a bacha, it was in Chevron Yeshiva. They were davening Mincha, and he got a little bit after Shkia. And as a bacha, after the Chazan finished Chazon Shatz, he clapped on the bema and he said, "Yisgadal." So I think the mashkiach there was, who was the mashkiach? No, that was Rosh Shiva. It's gone in my mind. Whoever the I forget. No, but whether the mashkiach, I forget. I've lost it. Whatever. But he stopped. He told Shalom Shadron to go get a Mishnah Berurah, and the whole yeshiva were waiting. He went to get a Mishnah Berurah. He walked to the front, the slow walk, and then he opened it up and he showed him this Mishnah Berurah. The minhag is to say it after Shkia. And Shalom Shadron said he couldn't leave his room for 3 days because of that embarrassment. And then later he said that because he wishes, because that incident took away 50% of his gaiva. His only regret was that he didn't do it again to take away the other 50%. That's what he used to say. Okay, that's the Mishnah Berurah. Now, the Das Hagoner Ben Yashuv is, and Rosh Hashanah Zaman Orach, Sheminag Yerushalayim lo matachna hashkia is not to say tachna after to Shkia. Or be Hagoner Rosh Hashanah Zaman Orach, the Das Chachmei HaKabbalah sheyesh sakana lo Mishkia Chacham Ve'elech. There is a sakana al pi Kabbalah to say it after. So the Mishnah Berurah says to say Tachanun after Shkia, and in the Minhag Yerushalayim, B'Shem Rosh Hashanah and the Rabbi Yashiv is not to. The Chamir Sakanta, and therefore he says not to. V'Vakav Chaim Kosev She'omer La'ach Shkia Hu K'mekatzes Netias V'Chomer Ma'id. Okay, let's just finish off. Sif base. Im Shochach V'Lo Yispal Mincha. If a person forgot and didn't have Mincha, Mispal Arvish time, he does Tashlumin, he does his Marav twice, which means he does the Shemon Esrei again. However, V'Omer Ashrei Kodim Tefillah Shi Tashlumin Tefillas Mincha. He does say Ashrei again, and that he does that. If he forgot to daven Mincha, it can happen in the winter. But if you look at the Mishnah Berurah, V'Im Hizid Ayin Le'el B'Simin Kufches, and there, if you look at 20, we said that if you did it b'mezid, shom nisboim his v'lo yispal einu tashlumim, and shim rotzi yispal lesu b'teres dov. You can do it b'teres nadova, but basically there's no first tashlumin for a mezid. And then sif kotzen tes kodim tefillah you say ashrei ayin el b'simin kufches sif kotzen Yudalad b'Mishnah Berurah, and in 21 he says shom kosav sheyesh me'achronim shekosvu b'shem ha'kibolim sheyesh lam ashrei she'ein omrim shelo omrim ashrei b'laylo. So in other words, if you do it, there's a debate whether or not you say Ashrei, but either way, you only do Tfilas Tashlumim if really you did it b'shoigeg. Okay, b'seida. Let's leave it there. Fine.